I used to work night dispatch for a private security company on the edge of the city. It wasn't a real office, more like a converted storage unit behind a warehouse. One room, one desk, one flickering fluorescent light that hummed louder the longer it stayed on. My shift started at exactly 10 p.m. every night. No exceptions. I'd park beside the dumpster, punch in the code, and lock the door behind me. By 10:05, I'd already made my coffee and checked the radios. By 10:10, the silence usually settled in. That night felt normal. That's what bothered me later. It was a Tuesday in early fall, still warm enough that the air conditioning kicked on and off, rattling the vents. I remember checking the time on my phone, 10:58 p.m., and thinking the night might actually be easy. No storms, no alarms scheduled. Most of our guards were posted at empty office parks and construction sites. At 11:17 p.m., the desk phone rang. Not the radio, the landline. I picked it up without thinking. Dispatch. There was breathing on the other end. Slow, even, like the person had pressed the phone to their chest instead of their mouth. "Can you log this call?" a man asked. His voice was calm, professional, the kind of voice that made you assume he belonged there. "Sure," I said. "Site ID?" He paused just long enough to feel deliberate. Then he gave me an address. It took a second to register. When it did, my stomach dropped. It was my home address. I glanced at the caller ID. Block number. "I think you've got the wrong," I started. "I don't," he said. The breathing stopped. "You're sitting at the desk right now," he continued. "Your coffee's cold. You haven't written anything yet." My pen hovered above the logbook. I hadn't written anything yet. I didn't respond. My throat felt tight, like I'd swallowed something wrong. "You always wait before you log," he added, "just in case it's nothing." "How do you know that?" I asked. Another pause. "I'm watching the clock," he said. 11:18 now." The digital clock on the wall clicked over. 11:18. The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a long time, long enough for the light above me to flicker twice. I told myself it was a prank. Someone bored. Someone who knew how dispatch worked. Still, I didn't log the call. At 12:04 a.m., the radio crackled. "Dispatch Unit 4, you copy?" Unit 4 was stationed at a closed office park about 20 minutes out. Quiet place. Always empty at night. "Go ahead," I said. "You got anyone else logged at my site tonight?" he asked. I checked the board. His name, his location, no one else. "No," I said. "Why?" He hesitated. "There's a car parked behind Building C," he said. "Lights off. Engine's still warm." I leaned back in my chair. "Probably maintenance." "They don't come this late," he replied, and it backed into the loading dock. I felt that creeping sensation, the one you get when something stops feeling routine. "Do you want me to call it in?" I asked. "I already did," he said. 10 minutes ago." I flipped through the logbook. Nothing between 11:17 and now. "What number did you call?" I asked. He told me. The dispatch line. My pulse picked up. "Unit 4. I didn't get that call." Silence on the radio. Then he said quieter. "That's weird, because someone answered." My grip tightened on the handset. "What did they say?" I asked. "They asked me to repeat the site ID," he said. "Same as you always do." My mouth went dry. "And?" I asked. "And then they told me to stay where I was," he said. "Said help was already on the way." I stared at the radio. "Unit 4, I said slowly. "What did that person sound like?" Another pause. "Like you," he said. Before I could respond, he added, "except slower." The radio clicked off. I tried calling him back. Static. I tried again. Nothing. At 12:19 a.m., the phone rang. Block number. I didn't answer it. It rang until voicemail picked up. I sat there listening to it ring, my foot bouncing against the floor. After it stopped, the voicemail notification appeared. I didn't open it. At 12:41 a.m., Unit 4 came back on the radio. His voice sounded strained. "The car's gone," he said. "No damage. No sign anyone was here." "Did you see anyone?" I asked. "No," he said, "but the passenger door was open." I asked if he was okay. He said yes, then laughed like he was trying to convince himself. Guess night shifts mess with your head, he said. Yeah, I replied. At 1:30 a.m., the phone rang again. I answered this time. Dispatch, I said. You forgot to log the first call, the man said. I told you, I replied. I don't know who you are. Yes, you do, he said. You just haven't met me yet. I slammed the phone down so hard it bounced. I locked the door, checked the cameras. Empty lot, dumpster. My car sitting alone under the light. At 2:06 a.m., the radio came alive again. Dispatch, a voice said. Not Unit 4, not any unit I recognized. Who is this? I asked. You logged me already, the voice replied. Check the book. I looked down. There was an entry in my handwriting. 11:17 p.m. Call received. Address confirmed. Observer on site. My hand started shaking. Where are you? I whispered. Closer than you think, the voice said. The radio cut out. I didn't finish my shift. I left at 3:12 a.m. Lights still on, door unlocked. I didn't tell anyone. I drove straight home and sat in my car until the sun started to rise. At 6:02 a.m., my phone buzzed. A voicemail. No number. I pressed play. It was my voice. Tired, calm, familiar. Dispatch, it said. Log this call, then breathing. I quit 2 days later. Never went back. Never asked for my final paycheck. Sometimes, late at night, my phone lights up on the table. Block number. And I swear, the call time always says 11:17 p.m. I used to drive overnight deliveries for a medical supply contractor. Not ambulances, just unmarked vans with coolers in the back and paperwork that said do not open. The pay was good because the hours were bad. Most routes started late and ended just before dawn. Long stretches of highway, no traffic, no witnesses. This one started on a Thursday night in late winter. I remember the date because it was printed on the manifest in thick black ink, February 22nd. Pickup at 9:30 p.m. Drop off a little over 3.5 hours north. Straight highway the whole way. No scheduled stops. I did my usual routine. Checked the tires, knocked on the cooler lids, signed the clipboard. Before getting in, I walked around the van once more, out of habit, and shined my phone light through the windows. Empty cab, passenger seat clear, nothing on the floor. I got in, shut the door, and started the engine. That's when the seatbelt alarm chimed, just once. I glanced over. The passenger seatbelt was buckled. I frowned, reached across, unclicked it. The belt snapped back against the door with a hollow thud. Must have done that earlier, I muttered, even though I knew I hadn't. I pulled out at 9:47 p.m. The first hour was normal, city lights fading, radio fading with them. By 10:50, I was on the open highway. Just asphalt, reflectors, and the occasional semi-roaring past in the opposite direction. I drove with the heater low and the window cracked. Keeps you alert. That's what I told myself. Around 11:15 p.m., I checked my mirrors. Side, rear, side again. The passenger seatbelt was buckled, not loose, tight, like someone was sitting there. I felt a chill go through me, sharp and sudden. I stared at it longer this time, trying to figure out how it could have clicked back in on its own. The buckle was angled slightly, pulled toward the seat. I reached over slowly and unlatched it. Click. The sound was loud in the quiet cab. I pulled off at the next rest area, gravel crunching under the tires, sodium lights buzzing overhead. Empty lot. I shut off the engine and sat there for a moment, listening. No footsteps, no wind, just the ticking of cooling metal. I turned on the interior light. The passenger seat was empty. I ran my hand over the fabric. Cold, flat, no indentation. I checked the belt, tugged it, let it retract all the way. Then I twisted it and tucked it behind the seat so it couldn't possibly fall back into place. Satisfied I got back on the highway, I told myself not to think about it. The road stretched out ahead of me, pale under the headlights. Mile markers slid past. I counted them for a while. Anything to stay focused. At 12:03 a.m., I felt the van shift. Not a swerve, not wind. Weight. Like someone had sat down beside me. I tightened my grip on the wheel. My heart started pounding, hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. I didn't look right away. I checked the rearview mirror first. Empty. Side mirror. Empty. I glanced down. The seatbelt was sliding out from behind the passenger seat. Slow. Controlled. The fabric crept across the cushion, then lifted. Click. The alarm chimed again. I slammed the brakes. The van jerked to a stop on the shoulder, hazard lights flashing. My chest burned. My breath came out shallow and fast. I turned my head. The seat was empty, but the fabric was pressed down, slightly, like someone had just stood up. I stared at that impression for a long time, long enough for it to slowly fade. "Get it together," I whispered. I laughed once. Short, broken. I unbuckled the belt and let it hang loose. I didn't touch the seat again. I drove. The rest of the trip blurred together. I kept the interior light on. I didn't turn on the radio. I watched the passenger seat out of the corner of my eye more than the road. Every time the van hit a bump, I flinched. At 1:36 a.m., the alarm chimed again. This time, the belt was already buckled. I didn't stop. I didn't look. I drove faster. When I finally reached the drop-off, a small medical storage facility set back from the road, the guard on duty waved me in. I parked by the loading bay and shut off the engine. The silence was overwhelming. The guard leaned into the open driver's window. "You know your passenger seatbelt's on, right?" I stared straight ahead. "Yeah," I said. He chuckled. "You running a rideshare now?" "No," I replied. He squinted at me. "You okay, man? You look pale." "Just tired," I said. I unloaded the coolers as fast as I could, hands shaking. Signed the paperwork. Didn't linger. When I got back in the van, the belt was unbuckled. I sat there for a full minute, staring at it. The drive back was uneventful. No alarms, no movement, just road and darkness. I convinced myself it was stress, lack of sleep, some mechanical glitch I didn't understand. I finished that week, then the next. Nothing else happened, so I stayed. 3 weeks later, I picked up a different route. Longer, more remote. Snow on the shoulders. At 2:11 a.m., on a stretch of road with no exits for miles, the seatbelt alarm went off again. This time, the seat beside me was warm. I pulled over and threw up in the snow. I quit the next morning. No notice. I drive my own car now, daytime only. But sometimes when I'm alone on the road, my dashboard lights up. Passenger seatbelt warning. Even when the seat is empty. Even when the car is off. I used to take long walks at night. Not for exercise, more like maintenance. If I didn't walk, my thoughts piled up. The dark helped. Fewer people. Less noise. Just me and the sound of my own footsteps. At the time, I lived in a small apartment complex on the edge of town. 2-story buildings. Concrete walkways. A narrow trail that ran behind the property, separating the last row of apartments from a stretch of trees and overgrown brush. During the day, families used it. At night, it was empty. Or it always had been. This happened on a Sunday night, a little after 1:20 a.m. I remember because I'd checked the time before leaving. I always did. If I wasn't back by 2, I'd start cutting the walk short. The air was cool, just cold enough to make me zip my jacket. Streetlights buzzed overhead, some brighter than others, some completely dead. The trail started behind Building D and looped around the woods before reconnecting near the parking lot. I stepped onto the path and started walking. At first, everything felt normal. My pace was steady, hands in my pockets, keys tapping lightly against my leg with each step. I passed the same cracked lamppost I always did, the same fallen branch half off the trail. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Not loud, not rushed, just there. I slowed. The footsteps slowed. I stopped completely. They stopped too. I turned around. The trail behind me was empty. Straight shot. I could see all the way back to the apartments. No shadows moving. No shapes slipping behind trees. I stood there for a few seconds listening. Nothing. I shook my head and started walking again. 5 steps in, the footsteps returned. This time they were closer, maybe 20 feet back. I told myself it was an echo, or my own steps bouncing off the trees. Still, my shoulders tightened. I checked my phone. 1:27 a.m. I kept walking. The sound followed, perfectly timed. Every step I took, it took one too. Same rhythm, same weight, not heavier, not lighter, just matched. I sped up, so did it. I could hear breathing now, quiet, controlled, like someone trying not to be noticed. My mouth went dry. I slowed again, gradually this time. The footsteps slowed with me. I stopped. They stopped. I turned around fast, expecting to catch someone mid-step. Nothing, but the breathing didn't stop. It was close now, right behind me. I felt it against my neck, warm, damp. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't try to be calm. I ran like I'd been chased before and knew what came next if I didn't move fast enough. The footsteps stayed with me, not gaining, not falling behind, always right there. I burst out of the trail near the parking lot and sprinted toward my building. My lungs burned, my vision narrowed. I fumbled my keys at the door and nearly dropped them. I got inside and slammed the door shut behind me. Silence. I locked it, then locked it again, then slid the chain into place. I stood there, bent over, gasping, listening for anything outside the door. Nothing. I checked the hallway camera feed on my phone. Grainy black and white footage of an empty corridor. No movement, no one on the stairs. I went to bed with the lights on. The next morning I tried to convince myself it was anxiety, sleep deprivation, my imagination feeding on the quiet. That night I went out again. I told myself I wouldn't let one bad walk ruin the routine. It was later this time, 1:44 a.m., colder, windier. The trail looked different in the dark, narrower somehow. I made it halfway before the footsteps started. This time, they were already close. I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I walked faster, heart pounding. The sound stayed with me. At the far end of the trail where it curved back toward the apartments, I glanced down at my phone without stopping. My step counter was on. I hadn't opened it. It showed 3,842 steps. That wasn't possible. I'd barely been out 10 minutes. I kept walking. The number climbed. 3,900, 3,980, 4,021. I broke into a run. The counter jumped faster. When I reached my building and ran inside, it read 5,112. I checked my hallway camera again. Empty, no one behind me, no one following. I stopped walking the trail after that. A week later, at 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A notification from my fitness app. Great job! You reached your step goal. I hadn't moved. The number kept increasing, slowly, steadily, like someone was still walking right behind me.